In a so-called free state, officials and stakeholders concoct solutions to problems often created by other bureaucrats and with little regard for infringements on the people. These stories are born at the apex of freedom and entrepreneurship. We foolishly advocate for the taxpayer. Brian's Beat presents Freedom Fools.
Hour 3 of Freedom Fools on WBSM. Wow. A lot of people over at the Chowder Fest today. We're going to be talking to Thomas Harvey. He is the chairman of the Massachusetts Alliance to Stop Taxpayer-Funded Abortion. Glad to have him with us during hour number 3. Before we go down that particular road, the Brian's Beat quote of the day. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Thomas Edison, the purveyor of that particular quote. Don't want to pay for abortions? Step 1, bring ballot question to Massachusetts voters. I read this at NewBostonPost.com a few weeks ago, and I was very intrigued. First of all, while I knew that taxpayers were paying for abortions here in the Commonwealth, I had no clue whatsoever that it was because of a constitutional amendment. But Thomas Harvey, our guest, he let it be known, and he wrote it out for us. I think he's an attorney. And right now, he has put a ballot question together that he and many others are out right now trying to gather the necessary signatures. This is a necessary step, even for a constitutional amendment. But what I think I'll let happen right now is Thomas Harvey explain how this is all going to work. Thomas Harvey, good afternoon. Welcome to Freedom Fools.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
Yeah, so the basis of this is a 1981 case. The Supreme Judicial Court, the highest court in Massachusetts, ruled in the case of Moe versus Secretary of Administration and Finance that Medicaid abortions were a constitutional right, and that abortion under the state constitution is a broader right than it is under the federal constitution. And this was just, judicial legislation. It wasn't the legislator that was making these pronouncements, but actually a court, even though the word abortion is not even in the state constitution.
How does that even happen?
Well, you can read the case, but it's for the past, since 1981 to the present, that's over 40 years where the taxpayers of Massachusetts have been paying for abortions. Unlike at the federal level, because at least for the most part, the Hyde Amendment, and then more recently, the Big Beautiful Bill. But in Massachusetts, the taxpayers have been on the hook for abortions. So we can't just go to the legislature and ask them to change it because, one, they're not pro-life, but also their hands would be tied. Even if they were pro-life, because there's a constitutional amendment, they can't get by that. So this is like a barrier that must be removed at some point. Otherwise,
as you say that, why do they have to be pro-life? I mean, I can see why that might make it easier, but can't they not want the taxpayer to have to pay for it and be pro-choice?
I agree, Brian, absolutely. And actually, we do need the legislature involvement in this. To amend the state constitution is not an easy thing to do, and it's a 4-step procedure under the initiative petition process. So the first step is getting these signatures, and we have to get, to be precise, 74,574 signatures certified. The second step is to go to the state legislature and get 1/4 of them in joint session. So there are 200 legislators, that's 40 senators and 160 reps. And the third step is to go to the next elected legislature and again get 1/4 of them. That would be 50 votes. And finally, it would go on the ballot in the year 2028. So it's a hard, process, but and usually, to amend the Constitution, it should be hard typically. So, this is a kind of a long-term thing, but the first step is getting these signatures. And we're in the process of doing that right now. In the past, we have fallen a little bit short. The number shifts a little bit because it depends, under the state constitution, it depends on the number of voters in the previous election for governor. It's 3% of that number. So that this time around, it comes to 74,574. In past years, it was 60-something thousand, and then one year it was 80,000, over 80,000. So we've come close. We've gotten over 60,000 signatures, but this time we're trying to get over the hump and get that required number. And in that regard, I've got signature gatherers all over the state, but I need more, as I see it. So if anybody wants to volunteer to be a signature gatherer, I'd be very happy about that. And they could get in touch with me, either the website or email me.
And we'll get that out in just a second.
Sure.
What I find interesting is the fact that you need, let's just say what it is. You're probably going to need about 95, 100,000, maybe 105,000 signatures. But that's out of millions of registered voters. While I know that, you've got your Planned Parenthood type people that would never sign this kind of petition, I think that there are many people here in the Commonwealth. Well, what's the difficulty in getting the signatures? Well,
I think some people hear the word abortion and they just shut down. And other people, these are the ones that won't sign, I think they don't sign anything. If they don't want their name out there for whatever reason. I don't know. I mean, I see this as being important. But you're right as far as it's not only a pro-life issue, it's a fiscal issue. So you should have people that maybe don't care about the abortion issue, but they don't want their tax dollars going for it. So I agree that both at the signature level and at the legislative level, we should have people voting or signing for this because of the two aspects.
Thomas Harvey is our guest here. So why don't you give out the website. That would probably be the best place for people to start.
Okay. The website is www.stoptaxpayerabortion.org.
Singular. Abortion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And what's been the response so far?
I think generally very good. I mean, we're going to supermarkets and churches for the most part, but also some of these events where there's sort of targeted audiences. So, Charlie Kirk memorial events that have been held, I think the large majority of people that attend those would sign this petition. And then different conferences, whether they are Protestant or Catholic, they hold these different events, and we've gone there and had a table. And a lot of times you don't even have to ask people. They see the sign. We have a good sign that have been distributed, and they see the sign. It says, stop tax money for abortions, sign here, a picture of a baby, and people come right up. You don't even say anything. They want to sign. So we've been getting out there. We are all over the state, but like I said before, I think we probably need more volunteers at this point. So
I'm in southeastern Massachusetts, also known as the South Coast. Where would folks find your people around here?
Well, I know I've got a contact in Dartmouth, and then New Bedford, and then Freetown, at least. Those are just three. But what I've been doing is people can contact me, and I immediately put in the mail petition sheets. So, they'll get it in a day or two, probably a couple of days. So that's the way I've been doing it. I'm a little bit leery of people copying their own sheets because in the past there's been, if it's only a little bit askew, they throw the whole sheet out. If it's, if a two-sided sheet, if the reverse side is copied upside down, that's no good. There's a lot of reasons why. So I prefer contact me, I'll send you the sheets, or contact one of the contacts in your area, and I'll let you know if you email me.
So in saying all this, what kind of response are you getting from, I don't know, if you go to Karen Spilka or Mariano, the Speaker of the House, Maura Healey? Do you even bother to try to talk to any of them?
No, I have not. I mean,
I wonder why.
Well, that would be the second step. The first step is getting the signatures, which, the reason this I think is politically possible even on this, deep blue state, is because we don't need half the legislature like you would, to pass a bill. You'd have to half the Senate and half the House. And also, we don't need the governor's signature on this. She's obviously favors abortion. We don't need her to get this thing through. So it's like I say, it's that 4-step procedure, and it's just a quarter of the legislature in joint session, and then goes to the people on the ballot in majority vote in 2028. So
I hear you that the governor favors abortion, and my guess is that Karen Spilka, I don't know her, but probably favors it also. But if you did speak to both of them or one of them and they gave you a negative, now you got something to fight back, and that probably becomes a campaign issue when we get ready for November of 2026.
I agree. I think also the same strategy as far as when we present this to the legislature in joint session. There may be legislators that vote the wrong way, in my view, and now it's a political issue for the next campaign. We can use it as a hammer against them. I would think in certain districts anyway.
Obviously, you haven't had a chance to count all of the signatures thus far, and that might be. I don't want to jinx you either. Any idea how many people have signed so far? Because you have about a month and a week to go.
Yeah, we got until November 19. You're right. We're going to have a swap coming up, and that's sort of a big meeting where, I may have sheets, for example, from the Springfield area, and I'm not going to go out to Springfield to file these at the clerk's offices. So we're going to have this big meeting where I'll give sheets to Springfield people, and they'll give sheets to the Boston people, so we can get them filed with the clerk's offices. After that, I would say within a week of that date, and we're coming up on that, I'll probably have it on the 20th or 21st of October. So within a week of that, we'll have a pretty good idea of where we stand, I think. Because the people will take the sheets and then go to their clerk's offices and file them. But I think there's a lot of people right now who are kind of sitting on petition sheets and have not filed them with the clerk's offices. So
I would think we had the Big E a few weeks ago. That might have been a good place to get a lot of signatures from people from all over the Commonwealth, certainly the western part of the state. Tottsfield Fair, I think it's already happened. Yes. Okay. And then we have right now in my backyard is the Chowder Fest, which is going to tens of thousands of people going to be down there for that.
Yes.
So
I believe
these events are great. And it might help as far as getting signatures from people from different counties, because I know it has to also be divvied up county by county.
That's right. One of the rules is you can't have more than 1/4 of the total number of signatures from any one county. So I think the only danger there would probably be Middlesex County, which is the largest county, and I probably have more volunteers in Middlesex County than the others. But for the most part, that hasn't been a problem in the past. We've been pretty much spread out across the whole state, but you're right on that.
Well, this isn't the first time for you, is it?
No, I tried it without any organizational help in 2015 and got about 30,000 signatures. And that back then you needed, I think, 60-something thousand. But there was no organization behind it. And then in 2017 and 19, both those years, we had Renew Mass Coalition involved. That no longer exists, but they were good. Had a lot of organization, and we ended up getting about 60,000 both those times, still short of the number, because one of those years the number went up to, I think it was 70-something and then 80-something. But I think we've got bigger numbers this time, so I'm hopeful.
Well, one of the questions was going to be, what have you learned from the other failures? And I think you've expressed it, the fact that you have to be better organized. And and that plus, what got you first involved with this? What's the genesis of your involvement in trying to get this campaign off the ground?
Well, I've been active pro-life issue for quite a long time, and I was wondering why we seem to be going nowhere politically. Other parts of the country, they seem to be making progress on the pro-life issue, but we seem to be going nowhere. And I am a lawyer. I did some research, and I found out about this case, and it's like it's not in Massachusetts. It hasn't been a political issue. No one talks about it. Why? Because you can't effectively go to your state legislature and complain about that. We're paying for abortions because there's nothing they can do about it. So because it's a constitutional right, that stymies everything. So we've got to remove that, and at some point it's got to be removed. If not this time, then sometime in the future, because even if the legislature would become pro-life someday, it's still an obstacle that must be overcome. That is, the constitutional aspect of it. So because of that, I was hoping to get, some organizations involved. And this time we do. We have Mass Citizens for Life is involved pushing this. And I just think we're doing better as far as spreading the word.
I hear you. Thomas Harvey, you just stated you are an attorney. What puzzles me, not that you're an attorney, is okay. You can say abortion is a right, but at what particular point does making it a right mean that I got to pay for it? That baffles me. Well,
the rationale, I guess, if you were to read that case, was that the taxpayers pay for maternity care. If a woman who's indigent or under mass health, the Medicaid, if they want to have an abortion, or rather, if they want to have bring the baby to term, then they're covered. And I think the court reasoned, well, that's not a real choice if the state will pay for that, but not pay for abortions. So they're forcing the woman to carry to term. I think that was the rationale, and somehow they found that to do that, to have the woman be deprived of Medicaid as far as abortions, somehow they found it was a constitutional right. I guess a due process violation. So I mean it's a real stretch in my view, but that's what they did, and that's stood ever since then.
Out of curiosity, you know what that vote was? Was it a 5-4 or was it close?
I don't know. I can't remember.
I mean, okay, so let me see. You're going to help you make the taxpayers pay to help to have a woman have a child. But in order to really make it equal, you got to kind of help if she doesn't want to have a child.
That would appear to be the reasoning. Yeah.
Is it me, or am I missing something here?
I don't think you're missing anything. That's the way I read that case.
Wow. And I guess nobody is, until you came up anyway, nobody's tried to fight this?
No, way back in, now that was a 1981 case. I believe it was 1984. They tried to overturn it. They got the signatures. And the way this works is you submit the language for the amendment. So in this case, it's nothing in this Constitution requires the public funding of abortion. So it's just trying to remove it as a constitutional right. But I submit that, and then the Attorney General takes that language and puts their own summary on it. So on the petition itself, it's not my language, but it's their language. So their summary of my submission was, this proposed constitutional amendment would permit the state to exclude abortion services from state-funded health care. Now, I wouldn't call it health care, but that's the way they summarized it. Now, I bring this up because back in 1984, they tried a constitutional amendment, and the summary was very confusing, to say the least. I don't think people knew what they were voting for, but it did get to the ballot, and people, we lost pretty badly, actually. I think the pro-life side got maybe 38% of the vote, something like that. And there were a lot of blanks, because I think, again, because people were confused as to, I don't have that language in front of me, but it was something like a constitutional amendment to comply with the U.S. constitution on abortion or something like that. So people really didn't know, in my view, what they were voting for or voting against. And that was the result. So ever since then, now that's back when the legislature was pro-life. Like I say, the early 80s.
And that's changed dramatically since then.
Absolutely.
There was something that I was reading in the piece that you wrote and that was printed in New Boston Post.
Yes.
And I believe it was something, now that the big, beautiful bill has passed, and if the federal government does not want to pay any money for abortions, that doesn't matter here in the Commonwealth. It just means that we're going to end up paying more of our tax dollars toward those abortions. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, because the big, beautiful bill, I'm not sure if everyone's aware of, but that, prohibited federal funding for abortion and to abortion facilities, including Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood sued for an injunction to stop that from going into effect. Of all places in the country, they sued in Boston, and a federal judge in Boston granted their injunction, and so Planned Parenthood continued to get funding. The government, Health and Human Services, appealed that, but an appeal can take a couple of years, but they also requested a stay of that ruling pending the appeal. The district court judge denied that motion for a stay. The government appealed that denial, and the First Circuit Court of Appeals reversed the district court judge on the stay. So in other words, federal funding is cut off to Planned Parenthood as of that First Circuit ruling. Now, Planned Parenthood appealed that, and that appeal is expedited. So I think within the next month, we'll have a decision from the First Circuit Court of Appeals on the underlying matter. Is it Planned Parenthood had claimed that it was a constitutional violation for them to stop the funding. So
it's a constitutional violation for them to stop the funding.
Yeah,
wow. That's how deep things have gotten since I was a kid. I mean, really.
I know. Well, I think I've read some of the briefs that were submitted, and it would appear that the government side has a much stronger case, but we'll see.
Eventually, it will go to the Supreme Court.
I think you're probably right. Yeah,
because Planned Parenthood has lawyers, the government has lawyers, so they'll just go tit for tat in something like this. Right. And I'll tell you what, if the vote turns out, it gets to the Supreme Court and it turns out to be 6-3, you're going to end up with a country that's just going to be going crazy.
It could be. So I bring that up to say how it affects Massachusetts. I start to getting off point there. So in Massachusetts, because Medicaid abortions are a constitutional right, the state is obligated to make it up. These women on Medicaid that get abortions, they know the feds are no longer going to fund that. Well, they weren't directly funding for abortion because of the Hyde Amendment, but they were funding Planned Parenthood, for the electric bill or whatever, overhead. It's still federal funds, but that's out, and the state has to make up for those Medicaid abortions funding. So,
wow. Yeah, I get that. I get it. The way that you explained it, it was a little convoluted, only because we had the interlude in between. But the bottom line is, federal government can say no, but here in the Commonwealth, they cannot unless something changes. There's something else that I noticed in your writing. Even if the voters were to vote the change in the constitutional amendment, there's still another step or steps after that? Yes.
I mean, this is only sort of an incremental measure, is just to stop it as a constitutional right. It's still, we don't have the votes in the legislature to do otherwise, as I see it at this point. So the funding will continue, but it's not going to be a constitutional right. So it's just setting the table so that the legislature, once it becomes pro-life, hopefully in the future, can actually take action. As I see it, we don't have half the legislature, not even close. We may not even have a quarter. But this is sort of an incremental measure just to sort of set the table, remove this barrier.
I'm sorry, I was going to just interject right there. But in listening to you, I can't help but think if you could get a constitutional amendment passed in 2028, isn't it possible that in 2030 there could be another ballot question that just says we won't pay for it?
Yes. If we could get this done in 2028, I would take a shot again to do that. That's right.
Okay. One more time, where can people get a hold of you in order to either get a sheet or sheets, or to find out somebody in our backyard here?
You can email me at tom@stoptaxpayerabortion.org, or go to the website, which is www.stoptaxpayerabortion.org.
Wow. Good luck. I mean, I gladly sign on the dotted line. As a libertarian, I don't want to be paying for somebody else's, whether it, I figure, and maybe I've got this wrong, you being an attorney, correct me if I do have it wrong, but I figure if it's rape or incest, get the culprit that impregnated the person to pay for it. If it's something that is more consensual, have I don't even know how much an abortion costs in this day and age, but it's got to be less expensive than going all the way through the doctor appointments, going through labor and delivery, and everything else that goes on afterwards.
Yeah.
Have the couple find somebody to help them out and let them pay a loan off, or whatever the case may be. This should not be on my dime, on your dime, or anyone else's. Right.
And there are many pro-life pregnancy centers around the state that are willing to help people through the process. They're free of charge. So there's one in Attleboro down in your way. They're actually all over the state. They outnumber the abortion clinics by far.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so you say they help. How are they helping?
Well, they provide free services, free diapers, counseling, other, baby necessities. So there's one in Attleboro, Abundant Hope. There's in Revere, there's a Woman's Concern. I know there's Clearway in Springfield. There's First Concern in Clinton. So I can't remember the names of all of them, but there's a lot of them.
So these are clinics that help you through term and then whatever happens, adoption, whatever the case, but not necessarily helping them if they want an abortion. Just want to be clear.
Right. They're not going to help them arrange for an abortion. They're not going to refer for an abortion.
Yeah. Or pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
I got you. All right. Hey, Thomas, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and come back. I mean, because I think this is a big issue and one that needs to be conquered from whether you're on the pro-life side of the street. I think everybody is pro-choice. Only government can take that choice away from you, but be that as it may. All right.
Okay, well, Brian, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Problem. I appreciate you coming on. Thomas Harvey, he is the chairman of the Massachusetts Alliance to Stop Taxpayer-Funded Abortion. So what do you, I mean, you heard him. How are you piecing all of this together? We've got a constitutional amendment, and if I understood correctly, and I think I did, because we have Medicaid that helps the pregnant woman all the way through delivery, that it wouldn't be right to have it if the woman, when I say right, the aid, wouldn't be right to have the aid for the woman through birth unless that you also had that aid to stop a pregnancy. I mean, I guess there's a bit of logic, but I can't help but think it's a warped logic. And again, maybe it's just me, and I'll bite the bullet on it. But I'm sorry, I don't see the logic. I don't. You know what it is? I'm gonna go back to something that I stated long time ago. Once government gets their fingers in there, then they don't know how to let go. In fact, they all of a sudden they become like an octopus, and you got these little suckers going all over the place. And if I can tie in a story from hour number 1, maybe it was hour number 2, where we talked about the government-operated grocery stores. Same thing. Obviously, grocery stores and food are different than an abortion. But you have these stores, and I don't know how many of them pay a tax. They don't pay a tax. I don't know how many abortion clinics end up paying any type of tax, but they start to grow and they become more popular. And instead of just having one every 3 or 4 towns, no, next thing you know, you've got 3 or 4 in one particular city or town. Same thing with the grocery stores. Might sound like a good idea, might even be a good idea at the beginning, but once it starts to work, well, all of a sudden people say, well, that's too far away and we need more over here, over there. And this is the inherent problem with the growth of government. And you always hear me say, I'm for small government. To me, even in the world of grocery stores, never mind abortions, but in the world of grocery stores, they become even larger. And I'm going to come back. I don't want to tell a particular city or town that I don't live in how to operate their affairs, as long as it's not interfering with my affairs in my town. So if New Bedford, and I'll even use these clinics, if New Bedford wanted to fund abortions for its women, it's not up for me to get involved. It's not going to be on my tax dollar. It's not going to be my abortion, not my child. So if New Bedford wants to do that, I guess I'm okay with it. It's when it happens statewide and you have to more or less leave the state in order to not get gobbled up in that whole kind of system. Same thing with the grocery stores. I know one is food and the other one is abortion, but it's government. And the government, as we can see, when it comes to abortion, they go out and they get a group like Planned Parenthood, who comes in and they know how to operate these types of clinics and systems and whatnot. They get X amount of dollars from the government to operate, and it just mushrooms. It's going to be the same thing with these stores. I can't expect you to hear every minute of every show that I do, but during hour number 1, we talked about Mandami and his idea of these government-operated grocery stores. He wants to put a few in New York City because, and it's a legitimate problem that's going on in New York City. People have a long way to go for grocery stores, and they can go to these little mom and pop type shops, but they're not going to get fresh produce, et cetera, et cetera. And the mom and pops, they charge more money than what you're going to pay even at a Shaw's. Okay, you know how Shaw's is the most expensive grocery store in our area. Well, these mom and pop type stores, they charge more than the Shaws. So Mandami has decided that, what would be good for New York City is to have government-operated grocery stores. And they'll be placed in what are known as these food deserts, areas where it's very difficult for people to get good food. On the surface, it sounds fantabulous. But then you have to think, where does it go from there? Because if it's successful, that particular city or town is going to want to have more of these stores. It's only reasonable. It worked for folks, and folks that may have had transportation to get to one of these stores that were basically set aside for folks in food deserts. Well, all of a sudden, they're using these stores. The goods are flying off the shelf, so more goods need to come in. And then somebody's saying, well, I wish I didn't have to drive 5 miles to go to that store. So being good stewards, government will say, okay, well, that's true. Why don't we put another one of these stores in over here and another one over there, so folks from the north end don't have to travel down to the south end, and folks in the west end, they don't have to travel all the way down to the south end. And the folks in the south end don't have to come to the midpoint near downtown. And the folks in downtown, well, they're going to need a store too. So why don't we put one in downtown? Next thing you know, these stores have a lot of the city customers. And once they start getting it's like the schools, once they start getting a lot of the city customers, then they can start imposing some rules and regulations, as a caller mentioned earlier. Well, sweet drinks, sugary drinks, we can't deal with those, can't have them in our shop. All of a sudden, things that you would normally buy at the Stop and Shops and the Market Baskets and the Truchi and what's the other one there, Shaw's, you're going to end up going back to those stores, or you won't be able to get it at the other store. Meanwhile, the other store, because they don't pay rent, they're able to expand even more, add more stores. All of a sudden, it's gone from adding a store or two to multiplication. And all of a sudden, your city is overtaken by these stores. And when I say overtaken, it's not like they're going to be bad citizens, but they're going to have control over the food market. Is that what you want? Again, in your city, if that's what you want, I guess go ahead, because I don't live in your city and I don't have to put up with it. But I sure as hell don't want it expanding into my city. 508-996-0500. I could keep going on and on about this. Hello.
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 Well, you could keep going on and on about it, but not every program that's created by government is successful. But they seem to not let them go even if they're not successful.
Yes, absolutely. No, you're absolutely correct. I said it earlier, but I can't expect you to hear every minute. If it's successful, well, government's going to say, well, we got to keep on doing it because it's really working. If it's not successful, the folks in government say, well, we got to keep on tinkering with it to make it successful. So they're going to keep it going no matter what.
Yeah, have you ever heard of a term called an academic exercise? It's usually something that's done in high school or college because you're testing out the theory of something in a school, which is a place that generally doesn't harm anybody. It's not like you're trying to roll out a program that isn't tested to the public. But a lot of these programs, and I've heard a lot of I don't even know if I want to call them smart people, but people that came out of Harvard, Yale, a number of the Ivy League schools, Columbia. And when they first get out of school, I mean, they have less experience than you and I do by a long shot in real life. But they have a lot of academic experience. And then they come out and they propose these academic ideas, or they write papers on them, or white papers, or whatever you want to call it. And then someone might take them up on it. And this is like one of those ideas. It's like if we could just provide, food at the cost level of food, so if a bag of apples costs the store at Shaw's $1 and then Shaw's sells them for $4 or $3, they're proposing to sell them at the $1, which is what it costs to get the food. That doesn't include the overhead of the store. It doesn't include all the employees. And they're also not in the normal commerce of buying and selling groceries. So what ends up happening is it happened to the St. Louis store, is that it basically ran out of food. And then they basically tell people, well, we're out of food till maybe next week or the week after. If you did that at a Shaw's would be out of business. People would go to Stop and Shop or somewhere else. So
right.
all I'm trying to say is, as a person that's been in business my whole life, is that the mechanisms in commerce are far sharper and far more precise than what a public institution can put together. It's never going to succeed because the pressures to stay in business aren't there. So,
I hear that, but what I fear is, these stores don't have to pay rent, and they will have overhead because they'll have people that work there, but their overhead's going to be tremendously less than the store around the corner, and they might not knock a Shaw's off the shelf, but they're going to kill those little mom and pop stores, those little corner stores.
Well, and a lot of the corner stores work on lower margins, or they have certain categories that are high margin and other categories that are low margin. It's more of an issue of promising something that you can't fulfill forever, because it doesn't work. And Soviet stores were like that in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Or you used to have the old photographs of the empty shelves. Well, if the shelf's empty or the employees aren't there, you're going to starve if your system is based on that. So I mean, if they're going to experiment with it, I guess, but I wouldn't want to be the community on the dole for it, that's for sure.
Gotcha. Hey, thanks for the call.
Ciao.
Maine, 508-996-0500. Hello.
How you doing?
I am. How are you?
Good. Hey, let me put it this way. Let me put you straight. Most of the people in New Bedford are from European countries or South America. They're from socialized countries. So would something like that do in New Bedford? Probably. I don't. I like free enterprise myself. You got to take the good with the bad. That's as simple as that. New Bedford is a social welfare, food stamp, giveaway, sanctuary, welfare city. That's as simple as that. 40% of the people in New Bedford are on food stamps, maybe a little more. I'm only calculating. Do you understand? So that's the way it is. Take a look at the voting in New Bedford the last 2 or 3 days, okay? How many people came out to vote?
Not many. Less than 6%.
So that's the way it is. New Bedford is going to be, it's not a city anymore. It's going to be, I don't know what the hell it's going to be. We need, no, really, it's not.
Well, okay, it might be, it might not, but what does all that have to do with getting these types of stores?
Well, we don't need them.
Oh, I'm not saying you do.
If you bring them in, you're not going to have Stop and Shop. You're not going to have Shaw's or anything like that. Yeah, the people that are on food stamps, let's look at it. Let's break it down. You got people that got laid off. They can't afford the rent. You got people out there that are takers. So you got to divide it. Your politicians are not doing their job. That's as simple as that. But remember this, okay? Is your ears open? Hello?
You talking to me?
Yeah.
Talk then.
Okay. Listen very closely.
Thank you. You said it once. You said it twice. Bye-bye.
You never change things by fighting existing reality. To change something, you must build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete.
Give me a break, give me a break, break me off a piece of
This is WBSM.
Here's what's happening this weekend on Town Square Sunday. We'll tell you about a documentary film coming to New Bedford that outlines the dangers of social media. Reverend David Lima and Kathy Rutkowski of the Children's Advocacy Center of Bristol County will join me in a discussion about Can't Look Away, the dangers of social media. We'll also speak with Anthony Barboza, a New Bedford native and internationally known photographer. An exhibit titled I Return with a Feeling of Us is now being shown at the New Bedford Art Museum through November 23rd. And hoorah for the United States Marines. It's their 250th anniversary on November 6th. We'll tell you how a local group is planning to celebrate. I'm Jim Phillips. Join me for Town Square Sunday. Sunday morning at 6 and 11 on 1420 WBSM and 99.5 FM.
You know how politicians take advantage of a crisis. Would it be okay if I do the same? The Small Business Administration is closed during the shutdown. However, owners still have a viable option. It's called Alternative Capital through Legitimate Business Funders. At Legitimate Business Funders, owners can get up to $2 million with no collateral in just a few days. To find out more, go to legitimatebusinessfunders.com. Legitimatebusinessfunders.com.
There's no better fool than the Freedom Fools. Now, back to Brian.
So this charge is used to fund state-mandated energy programs like Mass Save, like low-income assistance, and, of course, renewable energy projects. And here's the worst part. You have to pay this fee whether you use it or you don't.
You know, and I'm listening to that, listening to our prior guest, Thomas Harvey, and I can't help but think publicly funded abortions, taxpayer-supported abortions, taxpayer-supported grocery stores, at least to get them started. And if I was reading correctly, more government involvement, state government involvement in our utilities. So can you imagine this? You pay for the abortions, etched into the Constitution. You're paying for the little grocery store, and pretty soon you could also be paying for the electricity and the gas bill, all courtesy of government. I'm sorry, that doesn't sound like the free market to me.
Every obstacle you will ever face is not only an obstacle, it's also an opportunity.
WBSM.
I can't believe I ate that whole thing.
You ate it, Ralph.
I can't believe I ate that whole thing.
No, Ralph, I ate it.
I can't believe I ate that whole thing.
Take 2 Alka-Seltzer.
Here's what's happening this weekend on Town Square Sunday. We'll tell you about a documentary film coming to New Bedford that outlines the dangers of social media. Reverend David Lima and Kathy Rutkowski of the Children's Advocacy Center of Bristol County will join me in a discussion about Can't Look Away, the dangers of social media. We'll also speak with Anthony Barboza, a New Bedford native and internationally known photographer. An exhibit titled I Return with a Feeling of Us is now being shown at the New Bedford Art Museum through November 23rd. And hoorah for the United States Marines. It's their 250th anniversary on November 6th. We'll tell you how a local group is planning to celebrate. I'm Jim Phillips. Join me for Town Square Sunday. Sunday morning at 6 and 11 on 1420 WBSM and 99.5 FM.
The government may be shut down. Legitimate business funding remains open. See for yourself at legitimatebusinessfunders.com. Legitimatebusinessfunders.com.
With Progressive, it's easy to reach customer service with our app, website, chat, or by phone. Because when getting help is hard, it's not help at all.
Little help. A little hope over here.
Thank you for calling Bench Press Assistance.
What?
Due to excessive gym volume, all available spotters are currently lifting heavy weights off the chests of other bench pressers.
Seriously?
Please continue to hold, and we will remove the barbell from your chest in the order in which your cry for help was received.
Getting assistance should be easy. With Progressive, it is. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Freedom Pools on WBSM. Here's more with Brian Thomas.
Saturday at 12 o'clock, and after that, I would say all hell is going to break out. And I don't think they're going to do it.
So much for that guesstimation, Mr. President. Want to thank Thomas Harvey, chairman of the Massachusetts Alliance to Stop Taxpayer-Funded Abortion, for coming on to the program today. If you're interested, if you are inclined, there are folks with petitions in our backyard. You can always go to their website to find out more information. That would be Massachusetts Alliance to Stop Taxpayer-Funded Abortion. So thanks to him, and thanks for your calls today. I really do appreciate it. 65 in Little Compton, 69 in Rochester. Adios.
Around from town to town. Sometimes I think I'll settle down, but I know I'd hunger to be free. Roving's the only life for me. Adrift in